you may not have heard of Wittra as a brand or as a name. And some people have been asking us, well, what does Wittra actually stand for? Well, Wittra is actually an ancient Swedish word, which is normally spelled with a V, and it has a number of different meanings. One of those meanings is to know where lost things are. And clearly, as we go through this presentation, and you can see from the primary heading slide, we are looking at where is my stuff and what is it doing? So clearly part of our DNA. The other refers to a supernatural being, like an elf or a fairy, who is respected and considered skilled in the work that they perform. You're going to see as we move through this presentation that both those are covered off, right? Looking for and locating assets using a very unique technology. And we've only been able to produce the products and the solutions we've got by having a very skilled and dedicated team to drive the solution through. So both of those, and the term Wittra perfectly describes our DNA. So we're really answering the question, what is my stuff and what is it doing and where is my stuff? Now, as we move through today's presentation, and I'm hoping that my slide transition will go through. Perfect. We'll give you a brief introduction into Wittra, the company, who we are. We'll introduce you to Warwick Tours. I'll give you a brief overview of myself. What is the market challenge that we're looking to solve? I mentioned before the video with Armand Duplantis, in terms of being world-class isn't just part of Wittra's DNA. The approach we've taken, and finally a proof of concept versus proof of value, followed by a Q&A. Now, Wittra is an IoT company. As I mentioned before, we are an IoT company that has been around for a number of years, and we'll give you a bit of an overview in terms of the formation of the business and where the business is today. But before I actually get into that, I'm not sure if you can hear Warwick, but Warwick, maybe you could give a brief overview of yourself, because you'll also be presenting during today's meeting.
Sure, thanks, Steve. My name's Warwick Tours. I'm the CTO here at Wittra. I've been with the company for about 6 years. My background is in electronics engineering and wireless communication systems. Thanks, Steve.
No problems. And I know a number of you already know me. So Steve Carr, I was the mentor at the IoT Startup Bootcamp in London, and have worked for a number of large electronics distribution organizations, both high volume and high service. And I think I've spoken to a fair amount of you over my tenure within the industry, and really working with the Wittra team on the commercial aspects of the product. So now looking at the business, as I mentioned before, you may not have heard of Wittra before, but Wittra was actually established 8 years ago. So 8 years in the making. So back in 2013, the concept came from a number of the founders. Well, how do I locate objects? And looking at various technologies, we decided, and the business decided, to try and solve what was then deemed to be the impossible, which is really trying to look at location over the narrowband. There are lots of location type technologies out there, but doing it over narrowband was felt to be exceptionally difficult in order to get that degree of accuracy in terms of positioning. As the business went through and started to develop its solutions, it became very clear that there wasn't a hardware in the marketplace that really worked the way it should work in order to optimize, if you like, the primary objective of solving that impossible question around positioning. So in 2017 and 18, the business expanded to also become a product development business, answering the question, where is my stuff and where is it doing? 2018 and 19, the resources continued to grow, and a few customers came on board to actually validate the solution. And I can say a number of those customers have used other, or tried to use other solutions that have come nowhere near the Wittra solution. In 2020, we actually planned to launch a product, and then we were all hit by the global pandemic. So we actually undertook a soft launch with some early engaged customers. And as of Monday next week, we will be hard launching the product portfolio through a number of high service distributors such as Mauser and Farnell. So what are we trying to solve, and what is the size of the market? Well, we've all seen various charts and various data around the size of the market and what's going to happen as we move forward. 2025, there's an estimation that the IoT market will be worth somewhere between $1.3 and $1.6 trillion, with somewhere around 75 to 80 billion devices deployed. But there are still some key issues that need to be resolved. Integration, security, and connectivity are three of the ones that you'll hear about on a more regular basis, and also, of course, interoperability in terms of making sure that solutions will work seamlessly with other solutions within the marketplace. In fact, and you'll see from the statement at the bottom, we looked at some data, and according to Kevin Block, the CTO of Cisco, nearly 3/4 of IoT projects were failing. So we looked at this to try and understand why, and understand how we could better solve that problem and move that market forward. Because clearly the projects weren't failing because there was a lack of benefit from the project. We found that they were failing due to the complexities surrounding a proof of concept as companies move forward. So we looked at the obstacles and challenges, and then we looked to understand how we could best help customers solve those problems. So if you look on the left-hand side of the slide that I'm currently showing, you'll actually see the 6 primary problems that came up as part of the Cisco data, and why they saw 75% of IoT proof of concepts actually fail. Part of it was organizational culture. It's often underestimated the challenge that will actually, and the impact it will have on the organization. The projects were taking much too long, 18 months plus. Companies wouldn't necessarily have the right resource in place and the right skills in order to execute seamlessly on an IoT project. Security, as I mentioned before, can often be seen as an afterthought. So integrating into their back-end systems, the OT-IT argument became a problem. Interconnectivity, that's a primary stumbling block that most organizations came across in terms of looking at proprietary types of IoT solutions. And scalability can also become a problem. So what did Wittra do differently? And what's different in terms of our solution? Well, the one thing I can tell you is we have got to a scenario where we believe the proof of concept is dead. Only proof of value is required, and Wittra moves customers straight to proof of value. So it is removing the complexities associated to the ecosystem and to a deployment of an IoT project. So you can actually deploy a proof of value from Wittra immediately on day one. The setup is hours rather than days, months, or years in terms of getting data delivered and understanding what's happening with devices. The skills that we mentioned before that aren't necessarily available in-house aren't required. We've come up with a simplistic approach to deploying IoT because we believe in IoT for the mass market. The Wittra solution has the IoT network in place. We have the hardware, the gateway, the cloud services, and the software associated for your deployment. Let me just qualify the fact that we're not looking to actually deploy an end platform. We work with system integrators. We can work with platform providers within that area. But our solution will immediately show a customer the data output on a dashboard, because we believe that's important when they start looking at their ROI and understanding how their improvements can be made into their business. Our security, and Warwick will touch upon that as we go through the presentation. We have a TPM chip for authentication at every level. So tag, router, and also gateway. Many IoT companies just do this at the gateway. And we connect seamlessly and reliably, even in the harshest environments. I'll talk about our topology, and we'll talk about the standards that we use as we move through the presentation. But we are 6LoWPAN, and we'll come onto that in more details. And therefore, we're operating on an IPv-based solution. So it's exceptionally easy to have that interoperability, which is required to really drive IoT forward at pace. We're easily scalable. When you deploy a Wittra solution to understand what's happening with your devices and to locate your devices, you can just expand from that proof of value to make it a complete commercial deployment. This is why we talk about the proof of concept being dead. So what are we doing? Well, we're redefining the IT landscape, and I think that's one of the key takeaways from today's meeting. Wittra redefine IoT in terms of the landscape by offering unique, pre-integrated, pre-tested, and pre-secure solutions through both our network kits and our associated products. And we are bringing IoT to the mass market. We're accelerating and simplifying the approach. We're removing the complexities of the ecosystem. We're delivering a predefined cost model to companies as they look to deploy their projects, which helps them work on a predefined ROI. So proof of concept no longer exists. It's moving straight to proof of value. We do this through collaboration. We do this through understanding what the customers require and overcoming the customer problems before those problems actually exist in terms of their traditional proof of concept approaches. So what are we really trying to solve? Well, lots of people talk about IoT, and I've talked a bit about how we positioned ourselves. But one of the key problems in IoT is many solutions either look at fixed or mobile assets. Well, assets and people and objects move. The environments we operate within are dynamic, they're changing, and they're evolving. If you deploy a Wittra solution actually covers all of those areas. You're able to connect, sense, and locate all of your assets in the toughest environments. It doesn't matter if your assets are in a mine. It doesn't matter if your assets are 3 floors above you. It doesn't matter if your assets are actually deployed in a huge warehouse type building, which is giving you kind of a Faraday effect in terms of your signal. We have exceptionally strong signal propagation, which we'll talk about as we go forward. And it is all within one single technology deployment. So Wittra is the only solution that you need for an IoT proof of value today. But let's move on to the technology. So Warwick, if you could walk through the technology.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Okay, so before we just dive into this, I just want to say a little bit about open standards, open source. If you look at the marketplace, and this is applicable to most areas of tech, not just IoT, but it's very confusing for the consumers and users of IoT when they look at the marketplace and see the variety of technology and systems and solutions and providers out there. They generally have no idea when they start this journey about where to start and who they should be looking for and who they should be choosing as a partner and as a vendor and the supply chain. So one of the things that we see about using open source software and firmware where it's available is that it's the best choice in terms of longevity of the technology in the marketplace. If we hook ourselves to a proprietary solution, we quickly become irrelevant. Standards usually survive and prosper in the long term. So we're a big fan of open source, open standards, and we try and use them wherever possible. So most of our product, most of our system is built on open standards in terms of the firmware stacks, and the software and the solutions that we're building. What we're showing here is a brief comparison between Wittra's technology and some of the other potential technologies on the marketplace for wireless connectivity and wireless functionality when it comes to IoT. So you'll see in the key at the bottom of the page there, we're looking at Wittra in the green color. Sigfox is a network provider, IoT network provider. LoRa is an IoT, a wireless technology for building networks. Bluetooth, you would all be familiar with. It is also used in IoT, as is Wi-Fi. Then there's NB-IoT and LTE-M. They are together various flavors of cellular technology. So the big cellular players are stepping into the edge of IoT as well. And then GPS is purely a location technology, but it's relevant here in terms of being able to track assets in IoT. So what we've done there, if you look at this spidergram and you look at the green trace, that's the Wittra USPs, our unique selling points, our strengths, plotted on scales from 0 to 6 as we see it. This is our own analysis. If you want to, you can go onto our website, wittra.se, and have a look. If you mouse over each one of these measures around the edge of the spidergram, you'll see a small explanation as to how we've arrived at the analysis, the result that we have there. But if we take, for example, range, which is transmission distance, at the top of the spidergram there, you see that we certainly do not have the longest range in IoT wireless networks because we build our system on a local site, and we have shorter range multi-hops to transfer data from our sensor tags through to the cloud. But in terms of penetration capacity, we beat everyone else because of the way that we design our network. multiple shore tops are able to penetrate underground mines, buildings, basements, wherever you need to get a signal, we can provide the network to do that. Something that is relevant here is a new technology on the right-hand side there, the spidergram. It's called MyOT. It's been developed over a number of years by the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany. Wittra is a very early adopter of this technology. MyOT is a new LPWAN technology. LPWAN is low power, wide area network. So it competes directly with Sigfox and LoRa on low cost IoT networks. It's a very long transmission range technology. So it's a nice complement to what we have, which is a short range technology for on-site deployments. So if we combine MyOT long range technology and Wittra's short range on-site technology into a single product, we can address most markets for IoT. And that's exactly what we're doing in our development this year. Thanks, Steve. So just to illustrate the benefits of our on-site short-range multi-hop technology, other short-range on-site technologies are Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, among others. And here in this slide, we just want to give you a visual illustration of the benefit of using Wittra's technology in this case, a construction site. So if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see the red dots are a representation of what would be required in a typical Wi-Fi or Bluetooth installation in that kind of construction site. If the aim was to provide sensor data from various tools and equipment and people around the site, and to be able to locate those assets and equipment on the site accurately, you would need to install an extremely dense Bluetooth or Wi-Fi network on that building site. And I'm sure you can imagine that's a completely impractical proposition in this kind of environment. And in fact, that's why we are getting traction in this marketplace, exactly for that reason. If you look on the right-hand side and look at the green dots there, you can see that with Wittra's technology, we're able to have a much less dense network infrastructure on the site to achieve the same outcome, and that is accurate tracking of resources, equipment and people, and transmission of sensor data through to the cloud. So this is a major reason why the building industry is giving us a lot of airtime at the moment, because of this simple fact, and it's governed by physics. And this is because we've chosen to use the sub-gigahertz frequency bands for our system. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, so we were going to, I'm not sure if Frida's back on, we were going to do an overview of the product, but I can send a video link out to everybody for that, because I think her computer's still down. So we move on to the core technologies. Warwick.
So on this, thanks, Steve. On this slide, I just want to go a little bit deeper without getting too complicated into some of the other reasons and benefits behind our technology. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the title Mesh Radio. So this refers to our short-range on-site technology. On a typical industrial site, we build a local infrastructure, a local network, using very small, low-cost mesh routers. These are only the size of a matchbox, a Swedish matchbox, and they are typically installed on walls or in the ceiling or on light poles around the site. And this is what we showed in the previous slide on the building site, the green dots. The point to Mesh Radio is that you can just put the network up and check the network quality in our backend, our cloud backend. It shows you on the map of the site the link quality between each mesh router. And once you've done that, you can just forget the installation. It will form its own mesh. That means that from a particular sensor tag on an asset, the signal will hop between the various mesh routers in the most efficient way back to the gateway and up to the cloud. So mesh provides a very reliable way to collect sensor data from a large complex site and do it very reliably. With positioning and sensing, the middle title there, this is one of the core aspects of Wittra's technology. We spent many years and have a large portfolio of patents around positioning technology. As we mentioned before, trying to position assets using a wireless network over a narrowband radio system is extremely challenging. And in fact, the theory and the physics says it's almost impossible to do it accurately and reliably. And that's why we've spent so long in coming up with this solution. But we've achieved it. And moreover, we've done it at a very low cost, and we can deploy this later this year over our network with a firmware upgrade. There's no additional hardware needed for customers that want to invest in our technology now. So the way we do it, it's a little bit like an indoor GPS system, although it can be used both outdoors and indoors. But if you think of GPS is measuring the time that the radio signal takes to travel from various satellites down to the GPS receiver. We use a very similar idea, except we measure the time that the signal takes from our mesh routers down to the asset tag. And then we can triangulate the position of that tag, regardless of whether it's indoors, outdoors, underground, in a basement. It doesn't matter. And we've shown this to work reliably. And this is kind of a world first to get this level of accuracy. We see that our closest competitor trying to do the same thing can only achieve an accuracy 10 times as bad as what we can do. So we can provide sub 10 meter accuracy, even at fairly long range, several hundreds of meters in these kind of difficult environments. The last heading there, future-proofing investments. What we mean by that is because of the choice of our hardware, our technology, it means that we can upgrade the actual radio, the wireless protocols that we're using in our devices in the network. What that means for customers is that if they invest in a Wittra system today, a Wittra network, their investment can be spread out and amortized over many years, because as wireless standards change and improve, we're able to upgrade the hardware that they invest in today. If a customer buys, for example, a Bluetooth-based system and installs it, in the next iteration of the Bluetooth standard, which is typically every 12, 18 months, if they want the new features, they have to repurchase the hardware. So they have a very short lifetime, useful working lifetime of hardware. We're the opposite. We have a very long, sustainable lifetime on our investment for the customer. Thanks, Steve.
No worries. Thank you very much, Warwick. Appreciate that. So, you know, looking at the overall at Wittra, you heard a couple of key things or key messages from Warwick. You know, so why Wittra? Sustainability, accuracy, two key points that came out of that last slide, which I think are points that should be noted. I think we are the only true IoT organization that talks about sustainability as part of the value chain that we actually bring to market. But in essence, we are really looking for total asset visibility and total asset monitoring. So why Wittra? Well, we're fast, we're simple, it's affordable, and it's reliable. You know, there isn't a need for any more long, complex proof of concepts, as we said before. Proof of value is all that we really want to talk about in terms of ROI and predefined costs. The products become pre-tested, pre-secure, and pre-integrated. So there isn't a need to productize a solution after you've gone through that proof of value scenario. You can just expand from the product you deployed in day one. We eliminate a number of the costs associated with the ecosystem, consultancy costs, productizing bare boards, etc. All of those are actually removed in terms of the development that we've done. And as Warwick explained in the slides he went through, it's a true sub-gig, true mesh environment with frequency hopping, so we can really deliver that data in the harshest environments, both indoors and outdoors. Again, a world first in terms of the range, a world first in terms of the accuracy that we're able to achieve. So we are redefining the IoT landscape through a number of the patented technologies in terms of how we've got down to that positioning technology. We're taking our clients straight to proof of value, and we are really making sure that it doesn't matter what the environment is, all you need to do is work with a Wittra solution. So there are a number of challenges, as always, in total asset visibility. You know, it requires the solutions which are are designed for many different possibilities. We mentioned already about being accurate and detailed from a sensor location, so it's location, movement, but we also have a number of environmental parameters already built into our tags and built into our sensors. So we can look at things such as temperature, humidity, air pressure, orientation, accelerometer, all of the core sensors that you would have heard about and are very popular within the electronics sphere today are covered within inside the products that we're bringing to market. We give long transmission ranges in that 6-low-pan environment, and the signal and the signal strength propagation and the capacity there is just unmatched. I think, as Warwick said, and again, just to reiterate, from a positioning standpoint, we're 10 times better than anybody else or any other technology that's in the marketplace. And we also use frequency hopping for that reliable connection as we actually move forward. So some of the challenges that we've solved, healthcare, manufacturing, facilities, construction, you can see here, and you'll get a copy of the presentation deck. So obviously, you're more than happy to look at these and discuss these in any more details with us. But different challenges in different environments. So if you look at healthcare, the wireless infrastructure, you get no signal interference with the sub-gigahertz environment. Deploying a Wittra solution doesn't mean that you're deploying inside the existing IT infrastructure, which can be deemed as time-consuming or sometimes risky based on security. We're also a very secure system, as we mentioned before. You can do multi-level facilities. So if you're tracking test equipment or medical equipment for monitoring, and it's expensive equipment, it could be in multiple locations. You know where it is, so you actually get better usage. The same comes in terms of construction, accurate location and orientation, predictive maintenance. All of the aspects that you would have heard about within IoT, we've covered. So we're covering them well, and we're covering them through our core technology and through our core deployment. So what does it actually look like, and what does the kit look like? So in the middle of the picture here, you'll see the Wittra network kit, which comes with a gateway. It comes with a number of routers and tags, which can actually be also purchased independently to expand your actual deployment if you choose to do so. It is a true IoT out-of-the-box deployment. Nobody else has done this. This is, again, a first. We're offering months to weeks in terms of actually shorter time to market deployment. It's field ready, it's future-proofed, it's expandable. You can use click-on sensors like a Lego approach to actually move on to those devices. We have remote software upgrades for that sustainability element that came through from Warwick. It's based on open standards, and I think the piece Warwick did at the start of his slides about the benefits of open standards cannot be overemphasized. Being based around open standards and interoperability is key for any IoT deployment. And it's also one of the key messages that came out of the Cisco report in terms of being successful, or the IoT market being successful moving forward. We're scalable, secure, and certified. So you can scale from the basic kit. You can add more hardware. We have the authentication through security chips, and all of the devices are pre-certified. So regulatory compliances are actually all taken care of as we actually move forward. The benefits of Wittra deployment: well, you get productivity, you get sustainability, you can generate heat maps, you can look at automated equipment utilization reports, you can improve health and safety, because when we talk about assets, and we talk about assets moving from locations, that can include people as well as objects. So that clearly drives improvements in terms of costs and productivity gains. And then ultimately, knowing what's happening and optimizing the equipment that you've got can help reduce carbon footprint and help increase sustainability inside organizations. From a recognition standpoint, we've won a number of awards over the 8 years that the business has been in place, and more recently a German Design Award for our product in 2021. So we must be doing something right to have got that level of impact within the marketplace and that level of awareness and recognition from some of these areas. So the Wittra advantages: well, open standards, 6-low-pan, robust data, it's accurate, slow power, range and penetration, rugged in terms of its approach, it's IP67 in terms of all of the devices that we've got. It's expandable and future-proof, and as we've mentioned on a number of occasions, it's very, very cost-effective. The kits are available from Monday from high service distribution, as I mentioned at the start. So to us, that's really key. It's really the product is going to that broader market. We do believe we are bringing IoT into the mass market. I've given some contact details for myself and actually for Warwick on this slide if you need any more information, or you can drop it through to Frida. And we've also developed and have a number of development partners in place. So Fujitsu, from a back-end system, IoT Alliance, which was touched upon by Warwick, we're very closely aligned to Texas Instruments in terms of the software-defined radios that we're using. And as you said before, we've also had some interaction and communication through Cisco in terms of some of the Cisco back-end platforms. So we believe that we are actually delivering actionable intelligence. We're doing it in a way that makes it easy, it makes it expandable, and it makes it reliable in terms of what people are deploying. It's removing proof of concept, and it is delivering immediately to a proof of value. So now what I'd like to do is, and I do apologize for not being able to show the videos. We've had a problem with one of our servers at the back end, but you will receive the links for those videos in the press pack as we go forward. So please feel free to look at those. A couple of questions that did come through. I guess one of them to either Thomas or to Håkan. The business has been running for 8 years. How has the business been funded?
Yes, hi, it's Håkan Ackefjord here. I'm the CCO of the company, one of the founder in the company. Yeah, we have founded it by private investment. So we have invested $17 million approximately today into the company. Hopefully that's the answer of the question.
Yeah, so it's been funded by founders and private investment, and I think that's really a belief in terms of the technology that we were trying to be solved in terms of getting that positioning and not diluting the business as it goes forward. So that was great. I've got a question here. I guess it will be towards you, Warwick. What is the range from the gateway to node, and how far can you expand the network? So I guess it's two questions in one.
Okay, so if we're talking about our on-site 6-LoWPAN multi-hop technology with the mesh, then line of sight, if you have good line of sight conditions with no obstructions in the way, typically we're getting in the hundreds of meters. We've tested it at a lot longer than that, but we would only make the claim of hundreds of meters. In terms of expanding the network itself, you can have, it will support up to many tens of mesh routers. We haven't actually tested the limit. In theory, it can go over the hundreds of mesh routers. So if you have a couple of 100 meters in between each mesh router, then you can see that it can cover very large sites with a single system. When it comes to MyOT, the long-range LPWAN technology that we're integrating for later in the year, then that's a different proposition. That is a true long-range LPWAN technology. And then from a gateway to a MyOT asset tag, you're looking at 10 kilometers plus if you have line of sight conditions. I hope that answers the question.
I think it answered the question very, very well from that standpoint. In terms of one other question that's come in terms of you've talked about MyOT. How and when would MyOT be available? So I guess Warwick, it goes back to you.
Yep, thanks, Steve. So we're working with the MyOT technology right now. We've been testing it since last year, and we're integrating it now in the development roadmap. And our aim is to release something before the end of this year, before the end of 2021.
I've got one final question that's actually come in, and unfortunately, Warwick, it's to you again. How do you see your technology comparing to LoRaWAN and Sigfox?
Okay, so I mean, this is a good question, and this is what I was saying before about it's confusing for consumers and end users in IoT about the various technologies that are out there. So our on-site multi-hop mesh technologies based on the open standard 6-LoWPAN, that does not really compete directly with Sigfox and LoRa. Both Sigfox and LoRa are LPWAN technologies, low power, wide area network technologies. They are more competing with the cellular offerings of NB-IoT. So they are long-range technologies for collection of sensor data, but not necessarily positioning over their networks. So there you're getting between 10 and 20 kilometers from a typical Sigfox or LoRa device, whereas our multi-hop network is designed for much greater amounts of data, but in a restricted site, like an industrial warehouse or oil refinery or construction site or something like that. So that's one reason why we're integrating the Myote technology, because that is a true LPWAN technology that competes head-to-head with Sigfox and LoRa, and will give you similar ranges of 10 to 20 kilometers depending on the conditions. So we have both a short-range technology offering and a complementary long-range technology offering, which then does compete with those two technologies that you mentioned.
Thank you very much, Warwick. So I haven't got any other questions coming through, unless anybody else wants to raise their hand or fire one through as they come through. So what I would say is, as a bit of a takeaway, and I do appreciate everybody's time today, and I do apologize for the issues we've had with the video, but as I said before, you will receive those. I guess the takeaways from my side: we launch on Monday. It's a hard launch on Monday. It will be available through high service distribution channels. We are the only true IoT out-of-the-box solution. We are looking to deploy IoT to the mass market in a single technology deployment, and we can cover both moving, indoors and outdoor assets, and it's both monitoring and location of assets. So all of these things combined become a world first. So I appreciate everybody's time on today's call. And if there are any further questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will do our absolute best to answer those for you. With Inside the Pack, not only will you get copies of links for the videos, you'll get data sheets, you'll also get some high-res images as well of the product, and we very much hope that you'll be writing about and hearing more about Wittra over the coming months and years. We really do believe we're here to stay, and we are going to redefine the IoT landscape. So upon that, I will close today's call, and thank you all very much, and have a fantastic weekend. Thank you.